let's get rocking and rolling. It seems like the doorbell's kind of slowed down.
Yeah.
So welcome to Early Childhood Transition to Online Learning, Early Childhood through First Grade Transition to Online Learning. My name is Kathy Hobart. I am an Instructional Technology Specialist, and I will be helping to present today's lesson to you guys. And I'm going to let my awesome co-hosts introduce themselves.
Hi guys, I am Laura Moore. I am also an Instructional Technology Specialist, and I'm going to be running the chat through the presentation. And right now I am sending everybody a link to a Google form. This Google form was sent out to you through Eduphoria, and it's just so that we can place you in the correct grade level when we do our breakout rooms. If you have already filled it out, you don't need to do it again. But if you have not filled it out, go ahead and do that for us right now.
Hi everybody, I'm Sarah Sepulveda. I'm also an ITS. I taught kinder and first grade, so I'm really happy to be paired up with this group.
Hi, I'm Megan Leach. I work with student leadership and well-being, and I am an SEL behavior coach. I primarily service the lead cluster, but I'm very excited to be here with all of you today, talking about the SEL component to the online learning. I see a lot of walls and people.
All right, well, let's kind of start with what's going to happen in the next 2 hours to kind of lay out what we're going to be doing. So we know when you guys came back from spring break, you were kind of hurled headfirst into distance learning. And we kind of fumbled and just did the best we could. And we really learned some valuable lessons along the way of what worked well and what didn't. And so we've developed a framework that kind of outlines the expectations and the different components that need to be included in a distance learning workspace. So we're going to kind of introduce you to the different aspects of that framework today. We're not going to spend a lot of time on tools. We're really just wanting to help you understand what needs to be included, set the expectations for what distance learning should look like. So we're going to hear from Dr. Micah. We're going to take a look at the first couple of components of distance learning. We'll take a break about midway, come back, do a little bit more learning, and then when we wrap up, talk a little bit about what needs to happen moving forward so you're prepared in the event we go back into distance learning again. So we know this is a long 2-hour presentation. We're going to have an opportunity for a break. We're also going to have you interacting during the presentation. So we're going to have you connected to a Pear Deck. We do need everybody's participation because that helps us to document that you actually were engaged in the training, and also gives us feedback for what we can do as a department to support you moving forward in distance learning. We do ask that you keep your microphone muted as we're presenting. There will be some discussion times where you can unmute. We'll let you know when those happen. In order for you to get distance learning credit, you do need to participate for the entire 2 hours. So at the end of the PD, we'll print a report out that shows the minutes that you attended the training. You will be eligible for 2 hours of distance learning credit, but because this is being done during your contract day, you will not be eligible for those hours won't be teacher choice. So we're going to go ahead and hear from Dr. Micah first.
When the decision to close schools happened during spring break, you stepped into an emergency distance learning environment. As you know, it drastically changed our educational delivery model. When Apollo 13 was crippled in space and 2 NASA directors were discussing the low chance of survival for the crew, one of them stated, "This could be the worst disaster NASA has ever experienced." The director of mission control turned and said, "With all due respect, sir, I believe this will be our finest hour." We were handed a challenging situation and you responded. I have seen countless examples of you doing whatever is needed to meet the diverse needs of your students. I am so proud of the work you have done. In continuing to evolve with the educational landscape, this is the time to take distance learning to the next level. This summer and throughout next year, you will be provided professional learning opportunities to explore the best practices of distance learning. As Neil Armstrong famously stated when he stepped onto the surface of the moon, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Today is your first step in that journey. You will receive an overview of the 5 key components of a successful distance or blended learning environment. A deep understanding of these areas is critical in order to create a robust and engaging online setting. Quality distance learning is not converting what we've always done into digital worksheets, but instead transforming lessons into dynamic learning experiences. We are committed to being with you every step of the way. We will make sure that you are provided with the tools you need to be successful in this transition to a high-quality distance learning program that ensures every student is connected, engaged, and empowered. Thank you for all you do, and I will see you on a Zoom call or hopefully soon in person around the district.
Okay, so as Dr. Micah was just discussing, approaching distance learning with the same tools and strategies that work in brick and mortar will not always work virtually. We don't know what our situation is going to look like when we go back to school. So as you plan for your physical environment in your classroom, we also need to be mindful of planning a successful virtual environment in case we have to go back to this 100% virtual teaching approach. So the district has identified 5 areas to master when transitioning to a distance learning environment. And we need to modify our practices to ensure that all students are still engaging with content and meeting those learning expectations. So on this slide, Sarah's going to walk you through briefly just the 5 areas that we're going to talk about today.
Okay, so like Laura said, we've broken it up into 5 different sort of areas that we need to, be mindful of and think about when we're transferring, when we're looking at distance learning instead of our traditional classroom environment. The first one is utilize your curriculum in a digital space. And Laura's going to take us through that. She's going to show us, just like you would to get ready for the regular school year, you're going to, look at your YAG, your IPGs, maybe some adoption materials, look at your curriculum pieces and think, in this case, how are my students going to be able to interact with this curriculum in a digital virtual environment? And so we're going to have some talk about that. Second area, SEL, specifically relationship building. Definitely we want to be able to provide, we want kids to be able to collaborate online. It's something that we need to explicitly, teach and make sure that we're mindful of teaching them all of those pieces that are going to help them have this virtual classroom work as well as our traditional one is. And we didn't explain that very well, but thankfully we have Megan Leach here to lend her expertise in this area. So she's going to help us talk about that. Organize and deliver content. So definitely, we're going to talk about things about like delivering the content in digestible pieces depending on our age group. We're in a special situation being early childhood and first grade. We really have to think, how can we make this work for the little ones? Practice and student development. The nice thing about this is Laura has a lot of examples and tips and strategies for us in this area, but we're also going to break out into groups. So we're going to have first grade teachers. We're going to be able to talk to each other, pre-K and kinder, to be able to kind of talk about what has worked in this little bit of a taste of it that we've gotten this spring. And then Kathy's going to give us more examples and talk about, assessment strategies when you are doing it virtually, the different types, whether it be formative or summative assessment, talk about how to differentiate assessments for different students and some of the tools and features of different tools that you may want to think about using for that. So if you notice in the lower right-hand corner, you see that we have a shortened URL, little bit.ly there, and there is a kind of a one-page guide to these 5 areas that explains it really well, that you will have access to, along with everything else like my colleagues said. You will have this slide deck along with a ton of other resources that we have prepared for you in a Google Classroom. Okay, and for the first activity, we are going to look at that second area, so SEL and relationship building. We're going to do a welcoming ritual or inclusion activity, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to let Megan introduce that to us and talk us through it. But first, I want to talk about the tool that we're using today to connect is Zoom. And I know a lot of you are probably lots more experienced with it than you were a few months ago. But for this particular activity, we want to see each other. And so for that, we want to get into gallery view. As soon as Kathy quits sharing her screen, right now, I have some little screenshots of some of the Zoom interface that you might see. It's probably going to kick you back into gallery view by default, but that's the one where you get to see as many little squares as will fit on your screen. And if for some reason, see where Kathy's purple arrow is right now, if for some reason you manage to minimize us and you just see a tiny little box, you're going to want to look for that green arrow pointing diagonally. That will bring us back. But we are going to be switching from Zoom over to other views throughout this session. So we wanted to talk about that. But Kathy, if you'll unshare your screen, perfect. And Megan, if you'll talk to us about our first activity.
All right, let me full screen. Okay, you already went through the gallery walk, okay? Gallery view. Okay, so we're gonna start off this session with a welcoming activity, a welcoming routine, and inclusion activity. There's lots of names for it. Think about when you are in your classroom, you do welcoming. You greet students at the door, you greet them by name, you do morning meeting. There's many ways you do whole group greeting activities. There are many ways to welcome your students. So now we have to get creative and continue to do that in a remote learning setting. So we have an SEL resource that has ideas for welcoming activities. The activity that we're going to do today is called Have You. And it's just a fun way to incorporate movement into your meeting with your kids. If you're meeting with adults, it's a great way to incorporate movement as well. It creates a climate of inclusion, belonging, connection. There's an element of personal choice. So Sarah, the way this works is Sarah's going to ask some questions. They all start with have you. If your answer is yes, you're going to stand. If your answer is no, you're going to stay seated. We asked you guys to turn on your cameras just because it's more fun to see each other. And then again, anything that we're doing today, think about how you can take this and do this with your children, whether again, it's welcoming them into the Zoom meeting or doing it with an academic question. But just think about how you could do this with your kids. You can manipulate the questions in any which way you please. So go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, first question. Have you been trained on SEL on your campus, maybe in a Foundations faculty meeting this year yet? So, yes.
Have you had Foundations training? Yes.
Okay.
Some of us had, some of the team had Foundations meetings scheduled for after spring break, which didn't happen. So some of your campuses did not get that information, but we're going to provide a lot today for you. So,
have you felt frustrated with having to communicate with parents and students remotely this spring? Maybe one or two people, right? Okay. Have you taught another one of the grade levels in this session in years past? So if you're first grade now, but you used to do pre-K, something like that. So if you've hopped around a little bit. Have you had any uninvited guests, like pets or your own children, join your Zoom meetings with colleagues or students? We've heard some funny stories about that. Okay. All right. Thank you for participating. Awesome.
All right, so we are going to jump into the first area, and that is utilizing your curriculum in a digital space. But before we begin, I want you guys to hover over your Zoom toolbar at the bottom and give us a thumbs up reaction or any kind of reaction. You can even just give me a thumbs up in front of your camera if you have used Seesaw during distance learning in the past 2 months. We just want to see what kind of prior knowledge you have. And as I'm scrolling through, I see a lot of thumbs up. Okay, that is great. So in this section, we're going to talk about the basic features of Seesaw, which is the recommended platform for pre-K through 2. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't use Google Classroom or something else. That is just the platform that we are recommending. The district happens to be paying for this, and so we are able to utilize a lot of the paid features that really help with student learning and communication. So we'll talk about those basic features along with tips for successful setup and management, and especially connecting parents. That's really important during this time. So planning your digital or blended learning space before school starts will ensure success for you and your students. So navigation, norms, expectations, and protocols, all of those should be taught at the beginning of the year, just like you would in a regular classroom environment. Like I said, we don't know where we're going to be in August. We could still be in a 100% virtual environment. We don't know what the social distancing rules are going to be. So as you are preparing for your physical space, it is really, really important to think about and organize your digital space in case we have to do this again. Seesaw has a wonderful planning guide that will help you through this process. So Kathy is going to click on it and you're going to see two columns. The first one being tasks that you need to do to set up your environment. But just remember that Seesaw integrates with Skyward, so all of your classes will be populated when you start the year. But there's also a column for considerations. And so these are just ideas for you to think about, how are you going to deliver that content? What is your workflow going to be? How are students going to use the tools embedded within Seesaw to demonstrate understanding of concepts? We want you to continue to use strategies that worked for you this year, but really think about the parts that didn't work so well, and we need to modify those. So please reach out to your campus ITS so that we can help you resolve these issues. Now, sometimes if you're looking at the YAG or an IPG, it can be difficult to replicate that content into a digital environment. So we have a link included, and don't forget, you are getting a copy of this presentation so that you have all these resources. This is just a lesson that I pulled from kindergarten math, and as I was looking through it, as a specialist, it was somewhat difficult for me at first. I saw that there was a lot of content that had to be taught. There were a lot of linked PDFs, and a lot of times PDFs really don't translate well into a digital environment where students have to manipulate something or demonstrate understanding. So what I did was kind of a think aloud. I highlighted some things in the YAG, and I just kind of inserted comments that might help you make that transition from the IPG over to a Seesaw activity. So we don't have time to go through this, but if this is an area that you've been struggling with, this document might help you. We also have just an example of a lesson that I created that I literally took from the YAG, and I'm not really going to go into how to make this because that's going to be later on in the presentation with Kathy. You'll see that the direct teach part is actually that Go Math video that the kids watch. And then underneath it, I just created a template, and I used screenshots or just uploaded the PDF from the IPGs, and allowed the students to use the tools built within Seesaw to kind of manipulate and demonstrate understanding from what they learned in that video. So we'll go through that in more detail later. So one of the major concerns for both parents and students over the last couple of months has been confusion about when assignments are due. So here's a few examples of how you can clearly communicate that information with your families. We have 3 examples, and this first example is utilizing a calendar on your Seesaw blog. By default, the blog has not been enabled when you make your class, and so you have to go into your settings and enable that. But you'll see that I created a Google Doc, so Kathy is going to click on it to open it. And this is just a simple template, and I made this one as an example for summer school. So you see the week, and then there's a block for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the days of the week, and in those blocks, You can tell the times of your live Zoom meetings. You can include the links. If you are assigning a Seesaw activity, maybe you want to assign it on Tuesday, but it's not due until Thursday. So these expectations are clearly lined out so that parents and students know exactly what is due and when. So that template will be available for you as well. So that's just one idea. Another idea, and this is just a folder that's in Google Drive, and there's a site called Slidesmania where she creates these wonderful templates that are really kid-friendly. And once distance learning started, she started creating these templates that allowed for this type of organization in a digital environment. So Kathy is going to click on one that I kind of modified for NEISD. And this is really cool because if you don't know how to create a website or don't want to take the time to create a website, if you use this template and then share the link in presentation mode, she's going to go ahead and click on it. It goes full screen and it actually looks like a website, even though it's not. It's just a Google slide. So on the side, you can see the days of the week. So the kids and parents would just click on the day. And you see links for activities at the top. Maybe you don't have 4 activities. You can modify the template to maybe just have 1 or 2 per day. And because it's in Google Slides, you have the ability to add audio. You can insert video. So maybe you want to do a video of a daily message and include that on your page as well. So that is just another way that you can help organize your virtual classroom. And again, all those templates are free. They're really cute. The third example is from a kinder teacher. His name is Ben Cogswell, and I'm not really sure what state he's from, but he created this website and named his class Kinder Rockets. And this was created on a Google site, and you'll notice that he has specific pages. So there's a parent corner that contains information for parents, how to use the iPad, how to use the Chromebook. There's a daily schedule. There's daily messages, and then he also has sections where he actually delivers his content. So if you really want to get fancy pantsy, you could create a website like this. So that is just another option for you. So one of the most important components of distance learning is connecting with parents, excuse me, and establishing routine communication protocols. So ideally, we would want to have campus-wide consistency, but we know that that's not possible. So let's at least strive for grade level consistency. Seesaw has provided a page with best practices, and there's a link to it right there. It's called Teacher-Parent Communication. And it's just a resource to help get you started. You may even want to consider having a Zoom meeting with all of your parents at the beginning of the year, just to walk them through exactly what this would look like. If you choose to use another platform for parent communication, just make sure to establish the same routine communication protocols as the rest of your team members. And just keep in mind the perspective from the parents. Let's say they have 3 kids in one school. If their 5th grade teacher is using Google Classroom and the 3rd grade teacher is using Dojo and the kinder teacher is using Seesaw, that causes a lot of stress and anxiety on the part of the parent. So consistency with this communication protocol really is important. All right, we're ready for the next activity.
Sarah, you gonna hit it?
Did it again. I was muted. All right. So on this slide, at this point, we're going to go over how to get over to Pear Deck. So right now you're in Zoom. You're participating, you're listening, and watching along with us. And what we want to do is give you an opportunity to have some interactivity. And this is a great, I am going to say, it's a little complicated to do the Pear Deck and the Zoom at the same time. And we definitely don't expect you, that's not something that you'll probably want to do with your little ones, but they are definitely, capable of using Zoom and also capable of using Pear Deck. maybe not at the same time. But let's, for our purposes, it's going to work. It's going to be great for us to be able to manage this number of participants. So what I'd like to do first is if you'll just, if you're, experienced with Pear Deck and you want to go ahead and go to joinpd.com, go right ahead. But what I'm going to do right now is if you'll unshare, Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you. So that.
And Sarah, by the way, I put the link to where they need to go in the chat. They can just click on that link or copy and paste it.
Great. So let's see. I'm going to share this screen. And you'll see just a plain, google.com. And if you'll notice, I have a little M in the corner. That's because I have logged in with my nephew's credentials. He's a student at Coker. So we're going to use him as a little example today. And I'm just going to come up into my, right here where I put my address. So I'm going to type the URL and it's joinpd, as in professionaldevelopment.com. And that's going to take me to this simple page that all there is to do is enter a code. So the code, if one of y'all will read it aloud for me. CB, I can come back to it on.
CBSZD. Confused bandana, switch, zesty drums.
I'm also putting it in the chat.
There we go.
Have it right. CBSZD, is that correct?
Yes.
And I will, I'll show you all again in a second. So what it's going to do is it's going to want to know who I am, because I, as a teacher, have the option to make my Pear Deck session anonymous, which you may want to do with your little ones, in the classroom. But I also may want to collect data the way that I do this afternoon. And so I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, this is me. You're probably already signed into your browser, so it will know you as well. And then I'm going to get whichever screen my teacher is on. So right now I'm on a Pear Deck template slide that Kathy personalized. So you can see that she put some Bitmojis on there, and this is not the question that the template comes with, but what we did was, it's just a text box. You go in there, you delete what you don't need and type what you need. For example, dual teachers, these are very easily customizable. You can put any of the text that you see on a Pear Deck slide into Spanish super easily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this red dot and I'm going to respond to my teacher's question by moving like, oh, I don't know about doing great, but I'm about right here, right? So I want y'all to do that for a second. So go ahead and, navigate either on a separate device or here in a Chrome browser window on your computer. Go ahead and respond to this activity. And
if you're having problems, please ask me in the chat and I will walk you through it.
All right. Do y'all see that? I'm review. When you are finished. Now I only have 28 connected so far. And so as you can see, if you happen to be looking at my screen, you'll see down at the sort of bottom middle that I have 28 out of 29 out of 30. So in real time, it's telling me how many kids I have logged in, how many kids have started to interact with the slide, and who I'm waiting on. So like Laura said, we are can field your questions and help you out in the chat if you're having trouble getting to joinpd.com. I'm going to go ahead and move my little things here. And if I pop this out, you get the little instructions window again. So you're going to go to joinpd.com. And again, that can be on your phone, on an iPad, on a different device, or you can go ahead and open Chrome on this computer. And when you go to joinpd.com, it's just going to be a simple page that has a little pair and asks you to enter this code. So CBSZD. All right, and when you do that,
yes, did you show the responses yet?
Not yet. All right, so if you're having trouble, don't worry. If I skip to a new slide later in the presentation, I am going to set this to student paced mode, so you'll be able to back up to whichever slide you didn't get to. So no worries about that, but I do want to show you the responses. So this is kind of like a heat map, right? So I'm seeing everybody's dot one on top of another. And so I can sort of see, oh, look, we only have one. Look, and my frazzled person is changing their mind. Thank you. I think at this stage in the game, y'all are all certainly lots more expertise than you had before. And I also want to show you my teacher view. Okay, so now this is sort of anonymous. I can have it up on my projector screen. You know, I don't see who's who, but if I come over here, Anne, Karen, Melissa, now I can also look at grid layout and check on individual students. You know, like if this is an emotional check-in or something with academics, I can also just see one-on-one what everybody is doing, and I see their name under there. Sorry, Brittany.
Think about for kids that are just not comfortable answering questions out loud. This is a great platform for them to answer honestly, and then you can see who you really need to check in with more often, you know? So this really does support that social emotional piece, for sure.
So you can hide those responses, show them. I can even lock screens. Like for example, if I'm ready to discuss all of this input that I've gotten, I can go ahead and say, oh, lock screens. And that means that on their individual devices or at home or whatever, the kids are not going to be able to move their dot anymore. I'll unlock it so that y'all can work, but I just wanted to give you a chance to do that. So as you can see, we actually have 6 slides. So we're going to be coming back to this. Please don't close it, but go ahead and check out our, I'm going to unshare so that we can continue with our presentation.
Yep. And I noticed we didn't have everybody in there, and I just want to encourage you again that is part of how we're documenting that you're attending today. So we do want you to get into that Pear Deck and interact with us.
Well, I'm up to 43, so I think we're doing well.
Yeah, I think we have like 49 participants, so we're almost there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So the next piece that we're going to get into is that second pillar that Sarah mentioned earlier, which is the social emotional learning and the relationship building. Before I start with the slide, I know like pre-K and then even some campuses, they go up with it each level. We use conscious discipline, but remember that conscious discipline is a part of social emotional learning. It improves SEL, it improves school climate, and it promotes that pro-social behavior. So when I'm talking about SEL, that is included. So it's not something extra, it is a part, conscious discipline is a part of social emotional learning. So just keep that in mind, especially for my pre-K teachers. Think about your classrooms when you get your kids in the fall and you're physically in the classroom. We create a climate that is family-oriented, connected, loving. Think about going into distance learning. Think about the isolation that children are feeling and adults are feeling. While we know that the distance learning was necessary and might be necessary in the fall again, that just means that the social emotional connectedness piece is even more critical. Think about Dr. Micah's message, stay connected, stay engaged, and help kids to feel empowered. That's where this SEL piece comes in. So like I said, none of us are masters on this yet because we've never done this before. So we just need to be really conscious about thinking about taking care of our kids' social emotional needs in a remote setting. So when you look at the slide, we have the social emotional learning, the wheel. And when you are really promoting and supporting social emotional learning in the classroom, you are building up these skills in kids, the self-awareness, self-management, the responsible decision-making, the relationship skills, and the social awareness. So any activities that you do from our SEL playbook, you're promoting these skills. Anytime that you do a morning meeting, you're promoting these skills. Anytime that you do a turn and talk, you're promoting these skills. So think about kids that might have a behavior challenge or a social skill challenge. They just lack these skills. So it's something, you know, what a privilege for us that we get to build these skills in kids. There is a resource that we're providing here. Go ahead and click on it. So with social emotional learning, you have 3 signature practices that you can do that really build these skills in children. This is our SEL playbook, and it is just another tool or resource to put in your toolbox, and it supports systematic SEL. Like I said, if you did not receive the foundations training, you might not have seen this yet, but we're in the 2nd year really pushing out SEL with our district, so we should be in the implementation stage. this is a great resource. There are a ton of welcoming activities, ideas for welcoming your students, routines, rituals, procedures. There are a ton of engaging practices, engaging strategy ideas, and then there are a bunch of optimistic closure ideas. So if you really want to work on closing out your lessons, pull an activity from the closures and try it with your kids. This document is quite long, it's about 75 pages, but each activity is a one-pager. So it's very simple to pull, look at, read, and see how can you do this with your children. Of course, you want to do this in the classroom with kids to really create that connection, but if we happen to be in remote learning, you can take some of these and do them virtually. Do them through Zoom. The activity that we did earlier, the Have You could easily do that with kids just to get them up and moving and talking and looking at each other and making a connection. That's something that we do as a classroom family. So there are lots of ideas in here, and you'll get a copy of this as you get the presentation at the end. I forgot to say, on the wheel, when you guys get a copy of the presentation, when you click the wheel, it will go to a one-pager that talks about the indicators for each competency. So if you have a child who just really has no self-awareness whatsoever, it'll give you some indicators as to what to work on and how to help them develop those skills. And then in turn, that will prevent some behavior problems that might come out later on. Just really, really important, in order to increase the engagement and that connectedness with students, we need to be visible with our kids. So doing some of these activities, you know, them seeing you, hearing your voice, that's gonna absolutely increase the engagement and increase that feeling of connectedness. And then all of this, of course, goes along with positive digital citizenship. So that's just some resources for you to help promote that social emotional learning through the remote learning setting.
On this slide, I like to jump in and talk about the second and third bullet point that Megan has added here, asynchronous and synchronous collaboration. And those are going to be a couple of words that you're going to hear a lot throughout this presentation and definitely see in some of the resource materials that we are sharing with you. So right now the webinar is synchronous, right? So we're live, we're connecting with each other, we're able to ask questions and hear y'all's responses and everything in the moment. And then asynchronous would be like, for example, if you've taken an online course with one of your ITSs where maybe you have like 6 weeks to complete it and you might have to watch some video tutorials or read some articles, and then you have little homework pieces of things that you have to do, and the instructor is maybe monitoring, you know, you're turning things in and you're getting feedback, but throughout. So student paced, right? And in the traditional classroom, you do that as well. You know, you might have a live, you know, oh, we're all going to work on a predictable chart together, right? So it's synchronous. Or maybe I've put an activity in the stations for this week, and, you know, one student might complete it on Tuesday and the other not until Friday. And maybe we get together and talk about it at the end of the week. So it just depends on what, when you're looking at, and in a second when we talk about organizing and delivering content, you're going to see that that's something we're thinking about. All right, how am I'm going to look at my power standards and see which strategy will best fit this particular goal. Megan, do you have something else for this?
And then also on this slide there, I'm moving my cursor like y'all can see. Also on this slide there, we added a video. We don't have time to watch it right now, but it's a pretty powerful video on social emotional learning. It comes from Castle, which is a really resourceful website. They're the company that trains us, and they have really been at the forefront of supporting teachers through remote learning. So if you are not well versed on social emotional learning, that's okay. Some of us, it's fairly new. It's a fairly new idea. Some of us are experts at it. But I would definitely check out the video, check out Castle. There's tons of remote learning resources, ways to support families, ways to support yourself, your self-care. So it's a great video, and Castle is just a great, great resource. So definitely check it out. All right, and then on this slide, we've included some activities. Some of them come from Pear Deck. There are Pear Deck slides created already for the littles, for pre-K. They can do it. They, of course, need some adult help, but there are some pre-made editable slides. Some of the activities I took from that playbook, and I just recreated them in Seesaw. The emotion check-ins, the what's new. So it's just a way to support the social emotional needs with technology. So there are some activities they're here for you guys to get started with. if you try something from the playbook and you recreate it in Seesaw, please share. That's how we help each other and support each other. I'm always looking to add to my toolbox, and that way I can help my kids and my teachers and everyone that I get to work with. So I'm really excited for you guys to try some of these things. But yeah, here's a bunch of just starters for you that support social emotional learning. And some of them are synchronous and some of them would be asynchronous. So you have that component as well.
So on this slide, you'll notice that Megan gave us a little screenshot of, I think it's a daily check-in Seesaw activity. And underneath that screenshot, I've gone ahead and what I did on this slide was I didn't use a Pear Deck template. I just used the slide that that Megan created for us. And I just dragged in one of the Pear Deck accessibility features that I really love, especially for us, the lower grades teachers, and that is adding audio. So I was able to go ahead and just like click a little microphone that they have there. I recorded myself. I think it wasn't, I was just doing an example, but I would say narrate my screen or something. And I would like for you all to go over, and if you look down, you see I've got a yellow arrow pointing to some little headphones. So what you're going to do as a student is the students will be able to click that little set of headphones when they're in Pear Deck and listen to their teacher, which you're going to hear Megan say is really important, just for them to hear your voice. And in that way feel more connected to, their classroom and everything. But also, when we have those readers who aren't quite independent yet, if we have, say, a dual language classroom, in the case of distance learning, you have parents helping out a lot, and maybe you have a non-Spanish speaker parent. And so you may want to sort of record yourself reading all your content in Spanish and then maybe do an English explanation as well for those caregivers who are helping, right? But if you get a chance to kind of pop over to the Pear Deck, listen to that, and it's something, if you haven't talked to your ITS about Pear Deck yet or attended a training, I highly recommend it because you may not think so, but they've made it really user-friendly for little ones, more so than you would think. So Kathy, I think we can move on from there and people just get a chance to, I just want to be able to hear it.
Okay. All right, well, they have given us some great information about kind of setting up our digital workspace and taking a look and planning from our instructional planning guides and then working in the social, emotional, and relationship building. We're going to dive into the organization and delivery of content. So in this section, we're going to talk about both synchronous and asynchronous, about how we're getting that content to kids. And so we're going to look at some different ways that you can explain, demonstrate, deliver content virtually to kids, and also how we can foster online discussion and just really package things in a just right manner. So you could see on the little monitor there that we have lots of tools at our fingertips. We don't have to be good at all of them, but we want to provide you guys with some ideas and some variety for ways that we can send content home. So again, the goal is to learn how to demonstrate, explain, teach content, and then deliver that to kids. So the first way we're going to talk about is through Seesaw lessons. So I'm a huge Seesaw fan. I used it for many years as a teacher. It was really a game changer for me, but I was physically teaching in the classroom. I was delivering the content to the kids directly. And I used Seesaw to activities to have kids practice and apply with the content I was teaching. And that's really what Seesaw was originally developed for. However, now in the distance learning environment, it actually provides a very awesome vehicle that I can package and deliver my virtual content to students with the activities. So that's really what we want to focus on in this section, is to give you some ideas and things that you can do. So when you're finding activities in the activity library and you may be finding them on your instructional planning guide, most of them are going to be missing the teach piece because they were designed for being used in the physical classroom. So we're going to ask that you guys as teachers actually do some planning and creation to add the instructional pieces to the Seesaw activities. So several different ways we can do that. We can pull in instructional pieces from our instructional planning guides. We can record lessons and tie those to activities. So we're going to talk about some ideas. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to get the most bang for our buck by meeting with kids virtually through Google Meets and Zoom. But the overarching principle in this section is about balance. So it's not, I choose Zoom, I choose Seesaw. You really need to have both the synchronous and the asynchronous contact with kids, so you are actually delivering content and moving kids forward in their learning. So I'm gonna turn it over to Sarah to get us rocking on the Pear Deck.
Okie doke. So on the next, our next Pear Deck piece, and I'm gonna go ahead and advance the slide so that, again, I'm controlling what you are seeing on your Pear Deck screen. So I've moved us over to slide 3 in our Pear Deck session, and that one, and that one is going to have Kathy's slide that she just went over on one side, and then some options on the other. And what I would like for y'all to do is to choose the one that you have not tried yet and are looking forward to learning more about in preparation for next year. So if you are on a mobile device, most likely you will see the slide, and then you'll have an option to answer question. And if you click that, it'll pop up and you'll see your answer choices. And then I want to show you, once you finish doing that, and you come back to this, maybe you're just hearing my voice right now, you'll come back to this screen, and I want to show you some responses. So as a teacher, I'm looking at my slide. I don't see the questions that the kids see. I just can click show responses, and I can see all of my kids' responses. In this case, for this kind of multiple choice question that I was able to drag over onto my slide, I'm able to see a little bar graph type layout. But again, if I want to see individual kids' responses, I can also click it into grid view. Now this one is multiple choice so they're all pretty much the same. Now if I want to see who's who and who said what, for example, that's funny. Today we've had B has been a popular one today, whereas D was very popular in days past with this particular session. So I'm going to toggle y'all over to my sort of teacher dashboard view. It's similar, but I get to see all my slides on the side. And if I hover over something, I can see exactly who has chosen that. And if I were to go into grid view, I'll have their names underneath their answers. So that's really helpful. Now remember, when I quit, when I end this session, in my Pear Deck account, I'm going to have all of my Pear Deck sessions that I've ever had and all of the reports of who said what. Now remember, you can be anonymous, or you can have your kids log in and it will save their answers. It just depends on what you're using the particular activity for. Maybe you don't care about keeping the, you just kind of want to see, do like a little formative assessment and see if if they're understanding, that kind of thing. So I think if we are done with that, I have 30.
I love that slide because that makes me think about doing like goal setting with kids. So they could like pick a goal or whatever. I mean, right. For little ones, it would be hard because of the wording, but I just love that slide.
Yeah, it's a nice option. Kathy?
All right. So awesome. So it was really cool to see kind of what you guys wanted to learn more about. So we're going to kind of dive in. So the first thing I really want to be clear with you guys about is, like I said, Seesaw really provides a well-built vehicle for us to deliver this content to students through the use of activities. So we're going to take a look at kind of the anatomy of an activity and what goes where. And so any activity that you find in Seesaw, whether it's something that you're copy and editing, something that you saw on the IPG, or something you're creating from scratch, they all follow the exact same flow. And so we're going to look at kind of the different parts so you are really comfortable with what needs to go in what section. So the very first part is very self-explanatory, of course, the title of the activity and the written directions. In the resources today, you'll get some of the cheat sheets of how you change the directions into the little icons. Down here, you have the add voice instructions section, and I'm going to encourage you to 100% always utilize that feature, especially because we're working with early childhood through first. We want to design our activities in Seesaw to be able to be done as independently as we can make them for our young students. So adding your own voice is going to help kids be very clear about what to do. Not all kids have a parent to lean on at home, And so we want to do everything we can to make this as smooth as possible for them. If you come across an activity that already has a teacher's voice on it, it's very easy to delete that teacher's voice and add your own. And we really want your students to be hearing your voice. You're the contact person that we want them to develop a relationship with. So please always, utilize that feature. The next section is where I really want you to focus and take a picture of with your mind. So you see the yellow squiggly arrow and the red box. This is called the Add Multimedia Instructions section. And so in this section, this is where we're going to put our direct instructions. So this is where we're going to put our teaching component. So our delivery of instruction to students. Now, anytime that you see this plus in Seesaw, no matter where you see it, that plus is an indicator that you have all the creative tools available for you in that section. So when I click the plus, I'm able to add a photo. I can record myself and create a video right there teaching. I can go ahead and pull things in from Drive, upload things from my computer. I can drop links. So there are multiple ways for you to deliver that content. We're going to dig a little bit more into that in the next section. So add the multimedia instructions, that's where your teaching goes. And then right below it is where you're going to, the template for student responses, that's where you're going to build how students are going to respond to the instruction. So when I go into a Seesaw activity, I'm building something, or I'm copying, editing something that I found, what I want to do is really consider my learning target. So we really want to, pick your, digestible amount of content, deliver instruction on it, and then build that template. So we really get a good idea. Does the student understand what I taught them, and can they apply it? So we want to consider that as we're setting up the template. The other thing I want to share with you that's a really great feature in Seesaw is the ability for us to differentiate what we're assigning. So normally when you assign an activity to your class, you click that assign button. But when I select my class I want to assign it to, over here on the right, this is a clickable link. And I'm able to go and click either deselect all students and select individual students to send it to. So it really provides us a nice place for us to, differentiate what we're giving to students. We know every student in our class has different learning needs. And so it's nice that you have the ability to do that in Seesaw, especially even for reteaching. So you teach a lesson to the class and a couple kids don't get it. You can do another lesson where you reteach and reassess and just send it to those kiddos that need it. So just hopefully that helps you kind of know what goes where in the development of activities. Now, when we're developing that multimedia section for teaching, there's a lot of different ways we can do that. And so that's what we're going to look at here. So I'm going to share a couple of ideas with you. But again, you've got all the creative tools and lots of different options. So the first one we're going to look at, I'm going to hop back to this one, is we can pull in content from our instructional planning guides and use that to help us develop lessons. So I was taking a look at the first grade phonics distance learning IPG, and I saw that one of the lessons for phonics, they were going to be learning about the IE pattern. So I saw these PDFs linked and I thought, well, those are cute, but they don't do any teaching, but I could use them and pull them in and use them to teach with. So I uploaded the PDFs to Seesaw in the multimedia section. And once I pull that in, I'm actually able to teach on top of it with the recording feature. So I'm going through on this page and talking about the I sound in pie and the E sound in field. And then I added a page to actually deliver content. So I, use this was all created in Seesaw on this page. So use the label feature to make some words, use the drawing tool to underline the chunks. And then I'm recording myself pointing and explaining to the students how we use this pattern to decode words. So I've actually kind of built this instructional piece where I'm delivering content. Over here on the right, I just want to point out there's your directions. I have my voice instructions for the overall activity. And then down here, I have the student template what I want them to do with the knowledge I just shared with them. So my goal here was I wanted students to take that IE pattern and use it to decode words. So in my directions, I asked them to underline the chunk and then use the recording feature and the arrow to point and record themselves reading the words and applying the skill. One thing I did want to mention is sometimes as I'm building activities, I'm going to have different pages with different directions. And so try to keep things kind of succinct. Don't give too many directions at once. So when I'm in the editing mode, creating a seesaw activity, which I'm not in right now, but if I was in the editing mode, over here on the left in the drawing feature, I'm going to see a little quotation mark. And with that quotation mark, I can actually park directions for each individual page there. So I can click the quotation and record my voice for that individual page. Now that feature doesn't really jump out at kids that, hey, there's something down there. And so what I usually will do is use the shape feature in Seesaw and drop an arrow with a little text box that says, hey, click here for directions, to kind of give kids a visual indicator to look there for more information. So lots of, again, the multimedia and pulling in content, and those could be links to links or anything that I can pull in from Drive or upload to the Seesaw activity. So for the teaching piece. So the second example I want to talk with you about is using screencasting to actually teach a lesson and then adding that as my multimedia instructions. So there are lots of screencasting programs out there. Screencast-O-Matic you have available through the district. Screencastify is an extension. And there's also another program called Loom that is free for educators. So with screencasting, I can actually do a couple different things. So I can use screencasting software or program to just record myself with my computer. So if I just wanted to physically be there teaching, sharing a book, whatever, I could use it for that. Or I can share my screen and actually teach content with it. So in this particular activity, I've navigated to a website called the Math Learning Center, which I'll share with you in a minute. It's got some great virtual manipulatives. I set up kind of my teaching space, and then I use screen recording to actually teach a lesson. So when the kids watch the video, they see me moving things around and explaining and they see me down here. So I'm able to actually, have myself on camera, but also be manipulating the content at the same time. So that's another great way to deliver content to kids. And again, they're going to apply the content down in the student template section. So, and we've got some great resources for you. If you're not familiar with using screencasting software, you're going to have some access to some great resources in the classroom. The next thing I wanted to share with you is clickable learning boards. And so Laura and I did several trainings in March and April on clickable learning boards, and we're going to share the resources with you today. But when I'm going into the creative tools in Seesaw, if I want to add a link, currently I only have the ability to add one link to an activity in the multimedia section. So the idea for clickable boards was born out of the need to drive students to more digital resources to learn. So basically what you're seeing here is a Google slide that was created. I dropped images that I captured with the snipping tool of where I'm driving students to go. And students would go into the multimedia section and click this board, and then each image is going to drive them to a different content that I want them to look at. So this first one is called Unite for Literacy. It is a fantastic literacy site for young readers. Each book generates its own link, and you can get the books in English, Spanish, or a combination of the two. The books can be read aloud to students down here, and they just click through. So I wanted to start the lesson with kind of a literacy activity of them reading a book about money. Then I'm going to drive them to a video where they're going to learn the names of the coins and their value. Then I'm going to drive them to a game where they're going to actually practice matching the coins to their names. And I've added a screencasting video here. So using a clickable learning board allows me to really pack a little bit more meat into the lesson and kind of move kids through several different resources to learn about the content. So again, this is going to go into that multimedia portion, and then the students are going to come down here to apply and practice with the learning target that I'm working on. So good stuff. And this was pretty wildly popular when Laura and I were delivering it. So you're probably, if you look in your school activity library, you'll probably see some boards out there because teachers were doing a great job building them. But basically the bottom line here is that we need to package instruction with opportunities for kids to practice and apply content learned. We don't want to just send activities home. This isn't distance, busy work. We need to be delivering content to students to keep them moving forward. So that's kind of the bottom line. And as you saw today, there's lots of different ways that you can do that. As we're building our activities, we definitely, Laura talked a little bit earlier about, making things really clear so families and students know when to do things and what. I'm going to talk about it kind of from the activity standpoint. So as we're building our activities, we really want to organize our content with the user in mind. So what I mean by that, again, is we want to make things so clear that the youngest learners can be as independent as they possibly can. We also want to have some things in place so families are very clear about how to support them. So in our, one thing I'm going to suggest is in your activities to include the dates that the activity needs to be done. So this particular activity, it's very clear. It's a math activity. It needs to be done between June 1st and June 5th. And it tells the purpose. We're going to practice place value. You also notice a little emoji icon in the front of it. I like to add those to my activities just for visuals for the littles. So I would do like a plus for all my math activities, a little globe for science. If you'd like to add emoji icons to the beginning of your activity titles, when you're in the section in the activity where you type the name, if you hit on your computer, tap your Windows button and your period, it'll bring up your emoji keyboard and you can find emojis to add in that text section. Another idea that I saw one of the teachers I work with doing that I thought was, wow, that's pretty genius. At Mondays, she would go through the activity feed and create a screencast video where she kind of went over briefly the activities that needed to be done that week and then answered any questions that she anticipated kids would have. And then she shared that video with the students in Seesaw to, again, just make it abundantly clear. So I just thought that was a great idea. On the student end, when students have submitted activities, they've done it and you've approved it, those activities should leave their feed. It should automatically disappear from their feed. On the teacher side, though, that process doesn't happen automatically. So I do recommend that teachers have a system in place once a week or whatever to go through their activity feed, and any activities that are done and don't need to live there anymore, you're going to click the 3 dots in the lower right below that activity and archive it. So that'll just kind of keep your activity feed nice and clean for you and up to date. So basically the bottom line in this section, just be clear when scheduling things about when to do it, how to do it, and the purpose behind it. So we've talked a lot about the packaging the content for delivery. Hopefully you have some tools moving forward. The other side of this, remember we talked about the balance that we need both. Direct teaching in small groups is really going to get where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. We want you to be connecting with kids for small group instruction. It's fine to connect in Zoom or Meets for whole group for morning meeting, or if you want to do a whole class activity, that's certainly fine. But working with kids in small group is really how we move kids forward in their skills. So it's very similar to facilitating small group in class. You guys are working with littles, so we recommend no more than 10 to 15 minutes, probably once to twice a week is all you're going to meet with them. And the teachers that I've seen that have been the most successful in doing this have really been organized as far as a schedule. So maybe Monday they send the schedule to the parents for the week so parents know when their kid is going to be connecting. And that gives you that opportunity to really kind of deliver some small group instruction for both reading and math to kids. So as you prepare for that small group instruction, again, first communicate, lots of advance notice, but then your planning side, you want to make sure that you really give some thought to your purpose, your goal, how you're going to engage the kids during that interaction, and how they're going to respond. So just kind of work through that process. I know when I was working in the classroom, we spent so much time planning that all our whole group stuff. And when I really turned the corner as a teacher and started to really make amazing growth with my kids, it's when I really spent that time planning that small group instruction. So want to encourage you to do that. So those lessons should be interactive. On the right, you see Liz Pettit. Liz is our first grade ELAR curriculum specialist. She did a great tutorial on how to facilitate guided reading in a digital environment. And so I wanted to drop that resource there for you guys.
Sorry, y'all are going to see on this next slide, she's got a ton of resources for you, and we don't really have time for, to go delve deep into any of them. But remember, you're going to get this slide deck, and you're going to be able to click on all of these links and explore anything that's interesting to you, as well as a bunch of more stuff that we have on the Google Classroom. But Kathy, on the next slide, I wanted to show them real quick that, you saw some good examples from Kathy using all kinds of really neat, digital tools, websites and things where you can have, show math manipulatives and really get to be interactive and display and model for your students the way you would in your normal classroom. And so what I have here is actually pictured on the screen, and it's just a locker shelf. I really suggest that you have either way, whether you're going to do this or not. But Kathy mentioned, videotaping your lessons yourself, your little mini lessons, and putting that teach piece, for example, in the media example section of the Seesaw activities. And if you have your Seesaw class app and you log in as, the teacher on it here, it's super convenient to leave like voice feedback and text, comments and approve items from your phone. But also you can make sure that your little camera is just not being blocked by any of the wires. And then, this isn't a really good, but I can have my hands down here, and on the table I can be pages of a book, or doing one of my like phonics games, or like syllabus cards, or math manipulatives on my 10 frame. And it's just like a little low tech option for when you don't have your document camera at home.
All right. So we are going to have you guys do one more thing before we take a break. So we've shared some ideas with you. What we want you to do at this point is go ahead and set a +1 goal. So you're probably thinking, what is a +1? So we can't get good at everything, all at once. And so generally I try to pick one thing that I want to try, learn about, practice. And then when I get good at that, I pick another one. So I'd like you to think about the content that you've been hearing today and pick one thing that you're going to try out and practice with. So you don't need to write a lot, just a couple words. You're going to toggle over to that Pear Deck and fill your response in. And I'm going to stop my share and turn it over to Sarah so we can take a look real quick.
Yeah. All right. So we're just about to go on break, but I'm getting the responses rolling in. And if you can see my screen, you may be busy working on your Pear Deck, looking at that. But when you come back and to look at us, you'll see that I can see who all's responding. I can go ahead and show those responses and take a look in grid view. So we can look at what our +1s are. Recording my lessons and sharing them, that's an awesome one. Interactive lessons on the screen with students. Making Seesaw lessons. Maybe you want to start with just grabbing things from the community or the district library and personalizing them. So many teachers are so generous with their amazing lessons. Recording myself, small group, record a small group lesson, daily check-ins, yay, integrate that SEL. I love the way SEL, they have their strategies, it's super blendable with academics. All right, we have a ton of awesome feedback. Thank you so much. We've got 40 out of 40 responses so far. Remember, I'm going to go ahead and after the break, I'm going to put you on student base, so you will be able to go back and forth, maybe if you missed a screen earlier.
All right. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So we are going to go ahead and take a short break. We're kind of at the halfway point. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's 3:11. Go ahead, take a break, go to the restroom, get a drink, stretch. We'll be back here at 3:16 to roll on.
I don't know why I love the stretching lady so much. Like, that's the best clip art ever.
She's very bendy. Where's Gabi? I saw Gabi in here.
I've been seeing so many people I know. I just want to be like,
Gabi's in here, and Candace, and Melissa. And
Debbie Gass walked away, but she's my librarian at Ridgeview.
Erica, did Gina make it back in?
Gina, hello. Oh, Gina's been kicked out several times. Gina, that was happening to me in the morning yesterday. Oh my gosh.
Gabby, did you get
Yes.
Who else? I'm like, let me see. Margarita, I see you, Maggie. We're like,
Oh, I was muted. Sorry.
oh, are you
I
talking?
was like, hey.
Gabby, did you leave second or what?
Yes.
What grade?
For what?
First grade.
With me,
¿Con quién? Con Gina?
conmigo.
Conmigo.
Well, I think first grade's so hard, but I think I only taught it for 1 year, so I didn't get a
Yeah,
chance.
don't say that.
No, well, I've actually always thought that first grade's pretty hard because they have to learn how to read by the time they
Right,
leave.
and the writing, and they're little, but they are already having to like sit in their little seat for most of the day, you know?
Very stressful, yeah.
Well, last year I cried every day.
Gina,
But it's-
don't tell me that.
But it's the group that I had.
But it got better. She liked this year, right, Gina?
Yes, I loved it this year. It was night and day. Night and day. Hey,
Oh, y'all,
Melissa.
you remember
Hello.
Georgette? I had Georgette as my co-teacher, so we would like support each other when we were like, why? This
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that was so long ago.
You know what we should have done, Sarah, now that I see Georgina in here, we should have gotten some videos from her class because she does a lot of SEL with her little pre-K.
Oh, you need to hit her up. Be like, we're going to need your samples, ma'am.
She has a lot of, her CISO, she has a lot of good CISO stuff.
Awesome.
She met with her class twice a week.
Hi, Mira.
Yeah. No, excuse me. Every day, twice a day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Georgina.
You did.
Georgina.
Yes, hi.
Really?
Hi, everyone.
Wow.
Actually, it was a success. You know, I guess the parents like it. I just gave them the option and they told me that they want to meet twice, you know, and I did it for the parents that couldn't meet in the morning.
Mhm.
They met with me at 2 p.m. I did it twice,
Mhm.
every day.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think we're almost, it's 3:14 for anybody who can hear me. Make your way back to your computer. We're trying to be timely.
You said 3:16.
Oh, what did you say?
There's a lot of empty chairs.
Yeah, I'm looking at everybody, and I keep saying hi to people that their thing is empty. I'm like, come back. Debbie, where are you?
How come I can see Miss Barrientos as a wide screen? And then you all little pictures.
Gina, maybe if she was talking, sometimes Zoom will take whoever's got audio on.
Okay. But Melissa's not talking. I can see her birdies.
Do you see the stretch break screen?
He's loud.
Well, right now I just know I see Melissa in a big screen, and then I can see you all. In the full screen, I see Melissa, and then the little ones, I see you all.
Melissa, she's only creeping on you.
Kathy, I'm trying to do some
I
sort of
know.
settings.
I'm gonna need a glass of wine after this.
Hi,
This
Nicolette.
lady stretching is just reminding me that I need to do yoga or some kind of exercise.
God, I wish I could
No
still-
yoga, glass of wine.
Both. Why not both?
Okay, both. I was very frustrated because I missed the first part of this.
Yeah, she kept getting kicked out for some odd reason.
All right, well, it is 3:16, so if you are not back, if you'll go ahead and make your way back so we can get rocking and rolling. Laura, you ready?
Yeah, I am. So just to kind of recap what we've been talking about, we started off with utilizing your curriculum in a digital space, and that's basically what is your digital container going to be for the year. We talked a lot about SEL and relationship building, and then Kathy went into some really good ideas about how to organize and deliver content. But what we want to talk about right now is practice and student development. So how are students going to show their learning through creation, communication, collaboration, and problem solving? And hopefully you recognize those as being the 4 C's. Just because we're not in a physical classroom doesn't mean that we can't still collaborate in a virtual environment. There's a lot of tools that will allow us to do that. So we want to make sure we give kids choice and voice. It will keep them engaged and learning how to use the tools that will reveal their learning and their thinking. So if you look at again, all of the little icons on the screen, you see that we have Seesaw, we have Pear Deck, we have Discovery Education, Flipgrid. All of those tools are wonderful for students to show that they are mastering their content and showing growth. So let's go to the next slide. We have a few links right here that will help get you started if you're not familiar with any of these tools. Again, Seesaw has creative tools that are built right into the program. So if you click on that link, it will take you to some tutorials that will kind of show you how they work. They're super, super simple. Flipgrid is another tool that we have been promoting. It was once a paid platform, but Microsoft bought it and they gave it to teachers for free. So that's a great way for every student to show voice or to be heard. And they have integration docs. So if you're a kindergarten teacher and you're not quite sure how to utilize Flipgrid with littles, then they have a page where there's a ton of ideas that you could probably implement. We have been using the Pear Deck templates with Sarah. So Pear Deck has also created templates for littles. I think someone asked in previous sessions if those templates come in Spanish. A lot of them are just pictures and backgrounds and graphic organizers, and then you would just add your text on top. So they're easy to modify. For the past couple of years, we have been promoting HyperDocs. It's just a kind of a platform for a gradual release if you're doing a more involved lesson. And then finally, Ben Cogswell is that kinder teacher that has some really good ideas on how to use Flipgrid for sight word lessons. That's linked there as well, hopefully for inspiration. There's another really good kinder teacher that has some excellent resources. Her name is Christine Pinto. I think she's Pinto Beans on Twitter. She's another great resource to get ideas from. So what we're going to do right now is break out into our grade levels, and we're going to discuss what the practice and student development looked like in the past 2 months. We want to know your yays and oops. So yays being, what were some of the things that you had your students create to demonstrate understanding, and what went well, what worked? We want to share those ideas so that we can learn from each other. But we also want to talk about what didn't work so well, because we have to come together and solve these problems so that we are not facing those when we begin a new year. So right now you're looking at a Pear Deck template, and that is a question. The question is, what are some things you've tried during distance learning? So for example, creating Seesaw activities using curriculum content. When you get into that page, you're going to see some stars on the side. And if you have done that, you're going to move your star to the done column. And if you haven't done that, we are going to force you to be interested in learning about it. There is, when you get into the Pear Deck, when you get back into your Pear Deck, Sarah has turned it on to self-paced. And if you look in the bottom left corner, you will see some arrows, and that will advance you to either slides 5 or slide 6. If you're in pre-K and kinder, you're going to be on slide 5 with me in the breakout room. And if you are first grade, you're going to be on slide 6 in the breakout room with Kathy. So, Sarah, are we ready to do this?
I am ready. So some of you may not have gotten a chance to fill out that form that Laura posted in the chat. I also sent it to those of you who had, if you had signed up in Eduphoria by yesterday, you probably got it. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and send you, it's going to give you the option. It's going to send you to a room unless you're unassigned at this point, in which case, if you'll tell me, like Debbie, for example, I know you're a librarian. Where would you like to go? Just unmute yourself and tell me which group you'd like to join, pre-K, kinder, or first.
I'll go to first.
Okay. You're like first for 100, Sarah. Gabby, first, right? Gabby? I'm sending you there if you don't answer.
Okay.
Miss Drew, pre-K,
Okay.
right?
Pre-K.
Jessica? Diana Cheslaw? Anybody? Just unmute yourself and let me know.
Diane is pre-K.
I'm pre-K.
Cheslaw?
Diane. Yeah.
Okay. Sending you to pre-K. Jessica? Diana Garcia? Diana Garcia, is that? Who's that? I know her.
First grade.
That's it. Like,
Diana, first grade?
no, Diana, kindergarten.
Jessica, first grade.
I think I know which Diana that is. Jessica, first grade. Thank you. Yeah, it's because I see everybody, but I'm not sure who's talking. Maria?
Pre-K. Pre-K, pero ¿me puedes ver?
I see you. Is that Ira? Hi, Ira. Y'all, if you should be able to click, there should be an option for you to join. If not, you can look for the little breakout 4 boxes at the bottom of the screen. You can click that. Let's see.
Sarah, can you shoot me to the first grade room? You sent me to the kinder.
Oh, did I? I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Much power you have, Sarah.
I know. Don't make me mad. You know, there's some people that I wasn't able to assign. Stacy Getman, did you get assigned somewhere? Yes? Let's see. Catherine. Kathy, I sent you there. It should be giving you, maybe you have to click breakout rooms at the bottom. It says, it has you under first, Kathy and Stacy. Okay, perfect. Stacy, do you see where you can join it, or you can click breakout rooms and it'll give you the option to go on your screen? I think so. Yay, okay.
3:34, y'all. Less than 30 minutes.
Okay, couldn't figure out how to sorry. Are y'all able to see first grade's responses? All right.
Yes, we see them.
And then I'll show you kinder. Oh, good. We had some kinder people who had already tried out the learning and choice boards. That's awesome. Is everybody back? I think.
I think so.
All right. Well, I just wanted you to get a chance to see this. How neat. I get a chance to see very quickly sort of, you know, what everybody has been doing. I'm going to unshare my screen or stop sharing so that Kathy can share the presentation again.
All right. Well, we have covered a lot of content. We're getting pretty close to the end, and we're going to jump in and look at the very last piece, which is assessment. So, of course, for us to be effective in our teaching, we need to kind of keep our finger all the time on where kids are at and what they need. And so we really want to emphasize that you're going to assess often, and Seesaw provides an excellent vehicle for that. So, through the use of well-developed activities, you're going to really be able to see where they're at, and what you need to do, how you need to respond as a teacher. So we'll take a look at different ways or ideas to assess, and then also some different options that you can use to assess online. I do want to remind you that you do have that ability to differentiate. So as you're doing assessment, you can reteach and deliver content. So again, we want to close those daily learning gaps. You guys in pre-K through first grade, you're the foundation builders. And so your jobs are just super duper critical, because if we start developing gaps in these young groups, those gaps just get bigger and bigger and bigger as students move up. So assessment's really an important piece. So what I really want you to think about is, as you're building those Seesaw activities, to really look at that student template portion and structure that in a way where you're really going to get a good feedback and information on what the student understands from what you taught, and can they apply that content. So we really kind of have to give a little thought process to that. So we might find great activities in the library, but you always want to think about, is this activity going to help me get information about what I'm teaching the kid, and can they apply it? So we can do that by, again, using any of the creative tools. It doesn't always you don't always have to put a template in. You can, have kids take a picture and explain, video themselves. You have all those creative tools available. Also, you can screenshot and add some of those web resources in. Like, this is another one of those Math Learning Center apps, and I just took a snip of a number line in there, and I wanted the students to work on the number line activity. You're going to get the most bang for your buck in the getting assessment data if you encourage kids to use the recording feature. So if they're not recording, you're not getting as deep as you can. So I really encourage you, at least on one slide in your student response, have them record and explain their thinking, because that's where you're going to get the most view on what they know. So Seesaw, again, provides a great vehicle for it. We've looked a little bit today at Pear Deck and how that can give us some good assessment data. And then if you really like to get crazy with it, there's all sorts of great tools like Kahoot and quizzes. I told the last group, Kahoot used to be my classroom favorite for the quizzing platform. But since we've gone to distance learning, I'm really leaning on quizzes, because same concept as Kahoot, I can send the quizzes out. But on quizzes, the questions and answers are on the student device, and in quizzes they can actually go in there in the app and have the questions and answers read aloud to them, which I feel like is really helpful for littles. But those are kind of extras. And then of course you're also going to get a lot of information when you're connecting with kids live in those Zooms and having that conversation and observing them. The other part of assessment is feedback, and that's really how we grow kids in their skills, is by giving that feedback. So feedback isn't always positive. Sometimes it's used to redirect, reteach, that kind of stuff. So initially when my students started using Seesaw, they didn't do a really great job. They made fart sounds, they were silly. And I moved them forward by just continuing to give that feedback to them. You know, dig a little deeper, explain your thinking, because I really wanted them to utilize the tool for all that it was capable of. So I'm gonna share a couple ideas with you on how to get that feedback to kids. So the first one is through the use of digital stickers. These are Bitmojis, and anything that goes into Seesaw, you can click the 3 dots in the lower right corner of it and go to edit item. And then I can either cut and paste or upload things, digital stickers from my computer on top of their work. So this one I just dragged a bit, or cut and copied a Bitmoji sticker and dropped it in. It doesn't always have to be positive. It could be a sticker that says, hey, check this again, or hey, I need you to look at this. The other feature is underneath any item in Seesaw, you've got the ability to like and comment. When you click that comment box, you can add voice comments. And again, we're working with littles. You want them to hear your voice. And that could be, you know, you need to take a closer look at this work, or good job. But, you use that feedback to drive them in the direction you want. You can use comments and stickers at any point in the workflow process. You can do it when you approve work. You can do it when your after work is approved, and you can also do it before sending work back to students. So to give them kind of some feedback and push them a little bit. And then again, in the live environment, you're gonna have those conversations when you're connecting through Zoom or Meets to really push kids to that deeper thinking. So we've covered a lot today. I want to reassure you that distance learning is different and it takes time to master. So, just like when we're moving kids in our classroom, they struggle with learning new content, learning to read, learning new math skills. Sometimes learning is hard and it takes time to develop. So keep that +1 in mind and just keep building on your skill set and keep that growth mindset. Do we have time for whip around or no?
I think so.
Cool.
So this is, again, we're looking at that second area to master for distance learning, SEL, specifically relationship building. And we're going to use another one of the activities that Megan had provided a link to on one of the earlier slides that you'll have access to. And we're going to use it. It's called One Word Whip Around. Sorry, I've had trouble with that one. And we're going to use it today as an optimistic closure. And you're going to either, we'll go ahead and go back into grid view. And you can either answer in the chat or you can just unmute yourself. But I'm going to ask Megan to talk us through the one word whip around.
So the optimistic closure is one of those 3 signature practices that supports social emotional learning. It's a way to practice the social emotional learning skills. It comes from that playbook. This is just a quick way to kind of end your meeting, end your lesson, end your activity. We're each just going to think back to what we learned today. So in the chat, or you can unmute yourself, either which way. We're going to think about what everything we learned today, everything we went through today, all the examples, all the discussions that you guys had and shared, all the awesome information that you guys gave. And just share one word that sums up your takeaway from today's session. So while you're thinking about it or responding in the chat, you could do this with kids. It gives them an opportunity to share. You could differentiate by letting them do the chat, by letting them do it on Seesaw, by doing it out loud. And then those kids that want to tell you a very long story about all the things they learned, this kind of like narrows it down for them. We get one word. And it's just a way to reflect. 4-year-olds can reflect, 5-year-olds can reflect, 6-year-olds can reflect. It's just one way to, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a big happy cheering. It can be, oh gosh, that lesson didn't go very well. What's one thing that we can do better tomorrow? It could, it's just a way to reflect on what we just did. So if you want to go ahead and just unmute and share your one word, or share in the chat, and we'll just kind of one takeaway from today's session.
Informative.
Flexibility.
Yeah, we got flexible, voice, growing, communication, resources, planning, absolutely.
Oh, perseverance. Oh,
Good
I love
one.
it. Yeah.
Great one.
Patience.
Patience. Yep.
Connection. I like that one. That was good.
Y'all, we've never done this before. Like, you guys are building the model for this. So be fearless.
You're paving the way.
Yeah.
And whatever you guys are doing that works well, like share with us, because we don't know, we're with you. We're trying to do it too. So that's how we all kind of support each other.
Planning. Several people. It's like.
Well, it's kind of like in the fall, we have to think for both options, you know, but at least now we have a little bit of practice. So, you know, knock on wood.
Cool.
Helpful.
Oh, Alexandra's SEL.
Yeah.
I got one.
Lots of patience. All right, well, y'all can keep answering in the chat, but we want to show you some of the way that we're going to give you resources that we have for you, and that's having you join a Google Classroom. So
this is where you'll get all the resources. So
and guys, I'm also, before you say this, I'm also putting everything in the chat right now. So she's going to explain it, but it's also in the chat for you to click on, okay?
Yep. So just to kind of wrap things up, today was just designed to help you understand the 5 components that need to be occurring for effective distance learning. So your steps moving forward is think about the summer and fall PD opportunities. What do you need to learn more about to fill in any gaps in the areas that we talked about today? So we're going to share our classroom with you first, and there's a couple different ways to get there. You can go to Launchpad if you like, and navigate to the Google folder and then Google Classroom, or you can go in your web browser to classroom.google.com, or if you're logged into Google, you can click your little waffle and go to Classroom. So when you land on your classroom page, you're just going to see classes that you're already connected to. So to connect with our class, you need to click this little plus in the right corner and click join class and put the code in that Laura's putting in the chat. All right, Sarah, do you want to start with the Pear Deck takeaway part first, since we're on the stream?
Yes. All right. So you have participated in, on those 6 slides, you know, 5 out of the 6, you have participated, and because you were logged in, I, as a teacher, I'm going to get a report that has what each and every person, you know, what their answers were, what their feedback was, and it's very helpful. It's something that I can saves in my account, but I can also publish takeaways, which I will do later on this afternoon. But you can see, for example, this first post is one that Kathy posted where it says, here are your takeaways if you attended, you know, this certain session on Tuesday. Those participants will click on that link. So you're going to have to make sure you're clicking on the link for our session, which is Friday at 2, from 2 to 4. But when you do that, you'll get a chance to see your own little personalized, you won't see anyone else's answer, it's your own. And it's just a nice, you won't have to do anything. It's something to look at.
Yep. It's just a really cool feature. Further down the stream, you're going to find a couple more resources. Laura added a distance learning Padlet that's got some yays and some oops. You can read it and contribute to it if you like. I found it was really cool to read. And then some other resources for kind of knowing where you are with distance and blended learning. So by default, when you enter a Google Classroom, you land on the stream page, which is where we are now. That's where you're going to find kind of announcements. Where the meat and bones lays in the classroom is in the classwork tab. So right next to stream, you're going to click classwork. This is where you're going to come to find all of the resources that we're sharing with you today. So the very first section under general resources, you're going to find the link to today's slide deck in the very first section with all the links embedded in it. Then you have your 5 areas to master, 1-pager, so you can have that available. And then the third section is really important. This is how you're going to find out who your instructional technology specialist is. So if you don't know who that person is, each of us you have somebody assigned to your campus. And I would find out who that is by clicking this link and reach out to them. We are like waving our hands in the air. We really want to help support you. You know, for distance learning, but also, you know, just planning good instructional technology practices in your classroom. So, you know, please be familiar with who your person is and reach out to them. Under the curriculum and digital space, you're going to find that great folder of templates that Laura shared, the YAG to Seesaw lesson and the Seesaw planning guide. Then under the SEL, there's that amazing playbook that Megan was talking about with all those awesome social emotional practices and the framework wheel and the signature practices. If you want to go ahead and dig a little deeper, we've added the webinars and slide decks to some of the PDs that we have already done here. So if you're relatively new to packaging Seesaw activity, packaging that content into your Seesaw activities, this might be a good place to start. Underneath that, if you want more information on using screencasting to teach, then there's the clickable learning board resources are there for you. And then finally, if you're trying to navigate kids to subscription-based sources, this is a good video to share with families because they do have to go to Launchpad, open the app that they're going to be connecting to before they click the link. So you can actually share that video with families as well. And then under the assessment section is the little video about how to do that Bitmoji or digital stickers, however you want to use them. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to talk about the additional resources.
Oh, just really quick. I'm not sure if we had mentioned this much during this session or maybe in some of your breakout groups, but the instructional technology department, we've got a YouTube channel. We've had, like Kathy mentioned, some webinars she and Laura did about making clickable boards and sharing them through Seesaw. They did some webinars this spring and recorded those, and those recordings are available for you to view on our YouTube channel, along with tutorials that we have for teachers, tutorials that we've made for parents, both and also recorded webinars, some parent webinars that we did both in English and Spanish. Those are on there. Megan's department has a YouTube channel. Seesaw has a great one. There are the Seesaw Help Center, some good articles. So there's a lot of good stuff for you to explore.
So hopefully you are getting into the Google Classroom. The very last step is that we want you to fill out the Google form reflection, and Laura's dropped that link in the chat. So if you get to a point where you've connected to the classroom and you've done the Google form reflection and you're good to go, you're welcome to leave the meeting at that point. We're really glad that you guys joined us today and hope you had some good takeaways. Make sure that you think about what you've learned as you seek out those learning opportunities moving forward. And we hope you guys have a great summer. We'll hang out for a few minutes though, so if you have questions, you're welcome to ask away at this point.